fast forward to going through all the shit that I went through. I mean, I got to the point where I was doing 6-figure months, and then I lost everything. And I thought I was going to have to file bankruptcy. I thought I was going to have to go back and work in which construction company again. And I started talking to all these really miraculous people that again, just randomly showed up in my life because I was willing to connect, and were like, no, like you're on the brink of making a really big decision. Make sure you make the right decision here. And it's like, oh yeah, I got to keep going and getting uncomfortable and like risking it all, because if you don't, that comfort bubble is the most dangerous thing in the world. That job that you kind of like, that's the most dangerous job in the world, because you'll stay there your whole life because you can kind of tolerate it, and it will keep you from doing the things that you really love.
Welcome to the Powerful One podcast with your host, Tommy Parker. This college dropout turned entrepreneur and high performance coach created Powerful One with the mission of sharing the stories of individuals who have divided from conformity and redefined success in their own terms. Join us as we dive into the incredible stories and journeys of becoming truly powerful.
Welcome to the Powerful One podcast. This is episode 46 with Heath Armstrong. But before we get into the episode, I just wanted to mention all I ever ask for you guys, if you can subscribe on YouTube and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That is what moves the needle in the podcasting industry. So if you guys don't mind, take 5 minutes, write us a review. How do you like the podcast? How has it been a value in your life? Thank you guys so much. And without further ado, it is my pleasure in welcoming Heath Armstrong to the podcast. Heath is an author and the co-founder of Rage Create and an ECommerce Maniac, earning over $2 million in revenue. He is the creator of Sweet-Ass Affirmations and Sweet-Ass Journalst, and the host of the Never Stop Peaking podcast. And after waking up face down, pants down in his garage during a rock bottom breakdown, Heath started adopting the strategies of 100+ creative entrepreneurs that he interviewed all around the world with the help of a few magical strangers. In 2016, Heath retired from his traditional career in concrete construction, sold all of his belongings, and scaled his bootstrapped e-commerce startup to hit multiple 6-figure months. Since then, he has worked location independent from over 20 countries and summited the world's largest freestanding volcano, survived rafting the Nile River, witnessed exorcisms in Indonesia, and fallen in love with the culture and experience of East African digital education for children. He is also the co-founder of FBALeadlist.com, SellerSpaceship.com, and founding partner of Releaf Outings, a nature experience company based in Tennessee. And in this episode, Heath talks about his incredible journey of getting unstuck, finding joy and fulfillment, his rock bottom moments, the power of relationships and making genuine connections, connecting to nature, doing what scares you, exploring new opportunities and getting uncomfortable, as well as having a vision for your life and trusting your gut, and so much more, guys. So here it is, episode 46 with Heath Armstrong.
All right, guys, Powerful One podcast. We are here with Heath Armstrong. What is up, my brother?
Dude, everything, all the time.
I love it, man.
Excited to be here.
That's a great answer, bro. It's better than the I'm good, I'm doing good, how are you kind of autopilot response, So
I almost said, this is on the other side of my mind, was the only thing, I don't know why this keeps coming up, but I keep thinking in my head, the only thing that I know is that I know nothing. And when conversation starts with people that I've connect with briefly, I still just like that pops into my head. But I thought if I said that, it might sound a little bit weird to start the show, but so we'll do it that way.
No, that's awesome, dude. Yeah, bro, we got connected. I mean, speaking of that, we got connected, not too long ago, and, booked you for the podcast. And I started, doing some research about you. I'm listening to some podcasts you've been on, man. And I was just so fascinated by, like, one, your creative kind of mindset, two, your like adventurous spirit, all the different entrepreneurial kind of paths and journeys that you've taken. And I'm curious, man, like back, from your childhood, from your younger years, high school, college, whatever it was, has this always been stuff that you've been into, or did you really have to like come in to find who Heath Armstrong is now? And kind of what was that early process, man? Were you always like that creative guy who wanted to do his own thing and wanted to be the entrepreneur and do all this adventurous stuff? Was that always you?
I suppose maybe, but I didn't know it. I think as a child, we are born into this world with unlimited creativity and light energy. And what happens, unfortunately, is that as you grow up, you get all these layers stacked upon you from society or parents or religions or politics. There's your education, your teachers at school, like all of these things that come into your life and teach you how you should act and what you should do with your time. And it sort of stacks all these layers on top of that just pure version of yourself. And so, I mean, I was fundamentally influenced from day one to be a certain way and do certain things. I was relatively insecure and quiet and non-aggressive, but I always definitely found a connection to nature, and like every time I went outside, I felt things happening, and I felt myself like really wanting to explore that more. I also liked writing as a child, but I never thought it'd be a possibility to grow up and be a writer, which I've been able to do. But that didn't come easy, right? It was like this long period of me going through the traditional scope of getting a degree in something that I had no interest in at all, like concrete construction, and then working throughout this uh, industry in misery, like fundamentally trying to understand. I was just looking at old pictures because I was updating my website, and like I found this picture of myself walking around. It was right after I was walking around my neighborhood. I had this memory. I was smoking this tobacco pipe. My hair was out of control. And I had been drinking. I would walk around the neighborhood at like 7 a.m. and drink scotch, like in a robe, and smoke this tobacco pipe. And like, I guess I was trying to numb the idea that I was working in an industry because I was doing like making concrete receptacles that carried human feces underground. And I was working in a factory for like $13 an hour to do this. And I was working in this industry that in no way contributed to my creativity or my highest self or my interest in at all. I don't say that there's nothing wrong with that industry, but for me, it just wasn't matching up. Right. And how did I get to the point where I'm doing something that I really don't enjoy to make money that I thought I needed to buy things that I certainly didn't need to impress people that I really didn't like. And I was completely numb to my excitement levels and my creativity. And I think in those times, you're sort of ripe for a sledgehammer from the face, from the universe, or a rock bottom moment. And yeah, that's about when I I had my first really bad incident where I woke up face down, pants down in my garage with like a bloody nose, and my head was like cocked up on the step. I remember like my dogs looking at me in this very concerning way, and then only to find out about 10 minutes later that my car was still parked. I had parked it in the front yard, and this is a residential neighborhood. And I had parked my car in the front yard, and the engine was running. And like this was so far beyond any other blackout rampage that I had had in my youth. I mean, everyone in their youth gets a little wild sometimes. So especially growing up in the Southeast, it's like all anybody ever did. So I never felt like it was that uncommon, but this was another level of like, what the fuck am I doing? And how did I get here? And um, I remembered like all these things started flashing back in my head of like, when I was in third grade, I snuck my wiener dog into a classroom without my parents knowing. I put him in my backpack and I took him into my classroom for show and tell. And as soon as he jumped out of the backpack, he took this massive shit on the floor. And this one girl screamed and she threw up. And because she threw up, another kid threw up. And it was like this chain reaction. And like I had that memory pop up, and it was like this, like that was one of the first times I realized that like mystery or surprises really do pique curiosity and excitement for me. And that was exciting to me. And then like I started remembering other things. And along the way, 2 years before that, I had gotten on a plane to go do a job interview to work on like an oil rigger in the Gulf Coast or something. And this was 2008 or 2009 because the economy had just collapsed. And that's when I graduated college. And this stranger gets on the plane, and we're going from Nashville to Houston. And this dude's like covered in brands and covered in tattoos. And he's got this big goatee, and he's smelly. Like really, I just knew before he got near me that he was going to smell. And I was judging him in every way that I possibly could based on the superficial standards that I was taught growing up, not necessarily by my parents, but just by the people that I was growing up around. Absolutely. Like this whole, we are always judging everyone, right? And like, I'm a firm believer that the only real true comparison that you should ever make is to compare yourself to the person you were yesterday instead of comparing yourself to the person that you are or to somebody else today. Because there's no comparison. You can't compare. It's impossible to compare yourself to other people because you're all different. But he gets on the plane and of course he comes right up to me and he sits down and he's like, "Hey brother, let me sit here." And I'm like, "Oh fuck, like please don't sit next to me." And of course he does. And this dude changed my life forever, man. It was a seed that was planted that also came up in the memory when I woke up on that floor. Was this guy? He's like, "Where are you going? What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't. What are you doing? Like, you're freaking me out, man." And I start telling him, and he's like, "Well, so you love doing that stuff, like working on oil riggers or whatever?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Do I love it? Like, of course I don't love it, but this is what I have to do, to make money or whatever." And he's like, "Is it really what you have to do?" And I was just like, he's like, "Do you love it?" And it was the first time in my life anyone ever asked me, like, "Do you love it?" And that made some sort of assumption that you really didn't have to do something unless you loved it. If you didn't want to, if you were dedicated to it and committed. Well, then he just goes on to tell me about how he was being extradited from Rwanda he was imprisoned every day for 4 months for fighting for gender equality. And he had left Tennessee as a younger child, like not too young, but as soon as he was old enough, he went to Africa to fight for the rights of women who were victims of the genocides and to protect their children. And he was legit living in a village with real Rastafarans protecting him. And he showed me pictures of these like black mambas that he chopped the heads off of with like lizards coming out of their bodies. And like, I thought he was so full of shit. Then he starts showing me pictures and I'm like, this dude is unreal. Like he's a embodiment of everything that I thought only existed in movies, right? I didn't think these Indiana Jones types people existed. And today, his name is Jared Angaza, by the way. He's one of my best friends today. I talk to him every day. I didn't reconnect with him for like 7 or 8 more years, but he planted a seed that day. I got back to Nashville and a book arrived in the mail and it was called No More Mondays. And it was a book written by his dad about how you can work your way out of essentially living this life of feeling miserable that you have to go back to work on Monday to work for somebody else and give your energy to somebody else's project, etc. And so I just started remembering all that kind of stuff, man. Like, and I had no clue what I was going to do to get there. And frankly, it took me 3 more years of drinking and a lot more blackout fest until 2014, where I actually got something to click. But yeah, that's kind of how the transition started. It was quite intense.
Man, there's so much, man. Heath, it's a crazy story, and there's so much you said, man, that really resonates with me, but also really resonates with the idea of powerful one, man. It's like, I'm such a big believer in everything you said. Like, we're born so whole and pure and innocent and like, full of energy and love and all this stuff. And we only get like broken down and shit gets like piled on us from there, right? If we're like born this marble sculpture, right, we just get like more marble pieced on us. And I guess part of life is trying to like chip away again at that layers of stuff that just kind of comes on us, right? The conformity, the other people's beliefs running your life, right? Other people's expectations, like you said, religion, all this stuff, man. And so I'm so fascinated for the next step for you, but it goes along, man. Like the idea of, to be able to have that deep inflection point, where you're waking up with a bloody nose, with your pants down and your face down. And like, you have these deep inflection points, man, that ideally get you to really like divide yourself from all that stuff that you've had in your past and really, change your life for the better. And I think, part of it, like you said, man, it can even be this deep inflection point and it still is not enough. So I think the sad part is sometimes like that doesn't happen for people, man. So I think it's cool for people to hear your journey and hear when you're saying all that, hey, it wasn't always like where you see Heath today, right? Or it wasn't always this successful business and stuff like that, man. So I'm really curious what the next steps for you were in terms of really being able to divide from that conformity and really get rid of that pile of shit that was like covered up on you to be able to step into this newfound power of like answering that question, man. Like, do I love what I'm doing? And like, do I love who I'm being? And so I'm really curious, man, what that next step of your journey looked like for you.
It was really blurry. It was having no clue and really no faith that I would be able to create this life that I imagined. But what was important was that I had a taste of other people who had done it. And that was something I didn't have before. And I I struggled for about 3 more years, drinking a lot, working within the industry, but I was subconsciously sort of making decisions that moved me in the right direction. I ended up leaving that factory job, trying to do something entrepreneurial that failed. I was looking back the other day and I worked 17 different jobs and I had 3 different businesses fail before I was able to get one that actually started to do anything that I
Wow.
thought I could work with. And of course, I wasn't working 17 jobs in that 3-year period, but over the course of when I was 16 up until I was 28, when I made my huge transition and quit my job and sold all of my things and moved across the country, sold my house and built a legit business. That's how much I had to go through. And so it's like when you're driving your car and you know where your destination is, but it's like super foggy out and you can't really see past like 15 feet in the road. You know where you're going, but you can't always see the steps that are going to get you there. And so there's some fundamental things that I had happen that really broke me through the barriers to help me go in the right direction. And one was I had another rock bottom moment in 2014, is February 13th, I believe. I have a screenshot of it, but I remember pulling myself into this oversized bathtub that I had in my ridiculous house with 6 televisions and 5 fish tanks and all of these things that I didn't need to impress people that I didn't like I was talking about earlier. And it was the first time I noticed the podcasting app on the iPhone. It was like the first time they forced it on. And I listened to this woman's interview and she had this remarkable story of being almost in exactly the same situation. I mean, so many of us feel this situation that I've described. Like we all go through this like uncertainty of misery and like in our own way. It doesn't have to be with alcohol. It doesn't have to be with drugs. It can legitimately just be with going to work every day or not feeling good in your body or being inflamed and not getting energy to move around. It's different for everyone, but she said something in her voice that inspired me enough to come out of my insanely introverted shell and reach out to her and ask for help. For the first time in my life, ask somebody for help. And I didn't think she was going to respond. I sent her a Facebook message. Her name's Amber Vilhauer. It was Amber Ludwig at the time. It's Amber Vilhauer now. She's quite amazing. You could probably find her on the internet still. But she just responds immediately. It was like, "Can I call you like this week?" Which I thought was insane. But a lot of things happen. Long story short, with that, she calls me, tells me, basically just shoots down all of the resistance and fear that I kept making excuses about. Like she's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, well,
Mm.
I don't know. I think it'd be cool to like leave the country or travel or like even go to travel out a couple states away, or because I never did any of that growing up. My mom was kind of a single mom. She never had any money. Um, I would sit at the sports bar until 3 a.m. when she got off eating popcorn, and it was like, uh, I knew I wanted to explore. I wanted to like do things that were exciting, pursue mystery, but my curiosity was always there. I didn't know how. She's like, well, how do you think other people do it? And I was like, I don't know. She's like, well, how do you find out? I was like, I guess ask them. And she's like, yeah, exactly. You need to find people who are living the life that you want to live, and you need to ask them how
Wow.
they're doing it. And I promise you that most of those people had to work their ass off to get there, and they're going to be very happy to share that information with you because it means the world to them. Because we have this perception that anybody who is doing something that they love or is successful is like doesn't want anything to do with us because we're not. And that's such
Mm.
bullshit. It's such bullshit. The most successful people are the most willing to give and the most willing to be of service to others. And that was the first spark of me thinking like, God, this woman's amazing, but like, could I get to a place in my life where I can do that for other people as well? Like that became my dream, is not to make a bunch of money and not to uh, just be able to work for myself, but like, how can I do this and then also help other people do it as well? And she introduced me to 2 people. One was a guy who taught me how to podcast because he ran a podcast and he was just like showing me, it was called the App Guy podcast. It was 2014, 15 ish. And then another one was Hal Elrod, who is a international best-selling author of the Miracle Morning series. And I just implemented his simple morning routine in his book. Like if anyone's struggling and you don't have a morning routine, like just get that book. It's so simple the way he breaks it down. There's a reason that it's such a successful book. And waking up earlier and letting the sun hit my face and doing exercise and journaling and writing, that was enough for me to start clearing my thoughts to figure out, okay, now how do I move towards understanding what these other people are doing and how do I implement that into my life? And so Paul teaching me to podcast was basically him saying, look, if you want to understand how other people are doing this, then you need to go out and ask them. Now, the beautiful thing now is that a lot of us don't have to start a podcast to do that because there's so many people with podcasts asking people. So you can really search now. Like back then, there wasn't as many, but like you get the benefit of making the personal connection like we're getting right now if you do it yourself. But there are infinite ways of communication away from podcasting, like go talk to people locally. Anything that you're doing, and no matter where you are, whatever excites you and whatever truly makes your heart beat, tell people that you're into it and ask other people what they're into, and you'll start to make these connections. And as I started to do the podcasting, essentially, uh, I just began noticing all these common things that people were doing across the board that were making them, I thought, fundamentally successful from a habit perspective. And I don't think the bird's eye view of success can be anything without what you're doing on a daily basis with your mind, with your body, with the way that you think, the way that you treat yourself, the self-love aspect. And if you can master that, then you have the foundation you need to start building things longer term on top of it. And so that's what I did, man. I just started interviewing people and trying to figure it out, and realized along the way that the only way to figure it out is to stop trying to figure it out ultimately.
I love that, man. It's amazing how like the parallels of, you had these people in your life that really helped you, and because they helped you, or at least, helped point you in the right direction of what you wanted. And then you grew this kind of knack for wanting to, figure out what that was for you, but also be able to help other people, man. So like in terms of for you, I know you have, such a servant's heart. A lot of what you do is, focused around that idea of kind of helping people. So it's cool to see that people have kind of poured into you or planted some seeds in you that have helped you become the person who realizes that he wants to do that for other people. So talk a little bit more, if you don't mind, man, just about like the servant's heart that you have and all this stuff that you're doing now to be able to help other people in different ways.
Yeah, I think I just had a woman contact me a couple of days ago, and I went and had lunch with her. And I think as an entrepreneur, it's easy to get stuck in the mindset of, okay, I need to make a bunch of money to support myself to do these things, which is true in a way. You don't need a bunch, but you need some money to be able, because money just makes you more of who you are, right? Like if you're a philanthropist or you're a great person, then money can help you do that on a larger scale. If you're an asshole who likes to like rail cocaine off of toilet seats and like fight people, then you're probably just going to do that on a larger scale. um, she reached out to me, and like I created, when I interviewed all those people, I ended up putting it into a journaling system that I was using myself. And my black lab one day decided he was going to piss on these like 6 different journals that I was using to track different things, like giving gifts and like eliminating distractions from my life, and uh, writing down the things that I'm grateful for, like just all these different aspects that I was pulling and learning from these people I was interviewing. I was trying to do them myself. He peed all over the journals. And that was about the time, it was the first time I had hired a coach as well. And she was like, you need to put these into a system that's a one journal process that other people can use too. And I was like, no one's going to want to use that. And she's like, you need to do it. I'm telling you. So I did that. And this journal went out into the world. And all of a sudden, all these people were like, something I didn't think was going to work started working really well. And people started reaching out to me. And I realized very quickly that the best form of abundance actually isn't money at all. It's about that pay it forward mentality of like, what are you doing that helps inspire and um, helps push forward this candle of universal love and creativity for everyone. And she reached out, and I went and had lunch with her. And it was just this like bittersweet reminder of like, because this last year has been so hard for everyone being locked in place and not being able to do things what we normally do. And this school I'm working with in Africa, like, dude, when there's no food supply going through there to go to the children, a lot of parents are literally desperate and cannot eat. And therefore, what happens to the kids? Like a lot of the kids just disappear because they're being sent out to work or into trafficking or whatever. And it's like, what fundamentally makes sense in this world? She, back to her again, she reaches out, I go meet her for lunch, and she's like, I used your journaling system, and I finally got enough in me to leave my job and start a nonprofit because my son has Down syndrome. And now I've got this whole group of people with children with Down syndrome meeting together, and we're doing all these amazing things. And I would have never been able to do that without that seed that journal placed for me. But I'm looking at it as not like I made this and you used it and it helped. It's like every one of those sections of that journal was an inspiration of me connecting with somebody else before that, right? It was something I learned from someone else. Everything that we make is just a collective recreation of something that we've been influenced by somewhere else in the world. I mean, of course, we get downloads from the universe, but um, leaning into that process and just understanding that when you feel like you're dying or you feel like you have no idea what direction to go, your head's really cloudy or your body's inflamed, it's like go outside and find something that you can do for someone. And that's it. Like I don't I don't know if there's anything more important, Tommy, than like sitting around a fire and looking at people in the eyes and saying I love you. Like, it's like when did simple get so complicated?
Wow,
So
yeah.
we've created this like stress on ourselves that we need to make these really big things and all this money and stuff like that. But I can tell you, I've made all that money and I've lost all that money, and it doesn't change at all the way that I feel as far as myself goes. Actually, when I make all the money, I feel like I'm a lot more stressed and anxious than I am when I'm struggling and like in the grit and the dirt and trying to figure out how I'm just going to get my next meal in my belly so I can keep going. So um, I don't know if that answered your question or not, but that's how it flowed. So
No, it absolutely did, man. So I know that that's obviously the big part of you. What's another part, man? I know, being an adventurer, I know like doing plant medicine stuff. I know you have a lot of different ways, like whether it's biohacking, whether it's, the affirmations. Like I know you have a lot of different things that really help you along your process and journey. What's some other things that have really additionally in the alignments and relationships that you've created in your life been really beneficial to the trajectory and the person that you've became?
yeah, constantly exploring mysterious doors, whether that be digitally or physical world. Like the more that you can do whatever scares you, the more you're going to expand and create opportunity. I think that I've done a really interesting job of following my intuition, which is your gut. I mean, you have an easy way to put it is we have this amazing head and we have this amazing heart that people reference a lot, like follow your heart, follow your head, be realistic with your head, or follow your heart and love. But really your head and your heart are just it's like a rocky relationship between the two, like a high school relationship where the head is like, baby, this isn't logical, we need to do it this way, it's more safe. And the heart's just like, no, trust me, it's all going to be fine, just love and it'll all work itself out. And the head's like, you don't ever listen to me, like, this is I need to protect us. And then the heart's like, you don't listen to me, and like you don't care about my feelings. But the whole fucking time, man, like your gut is sort of sitting in the corner drinking a glass of wine, smoking a cigar, thinking like, if you two would just shut the hell up, I will show you where your excitement is. I'll show you where the treasure map is. I'll show you where to go next. And with those layers we talked about earlier, it feels to me like they are piled on top of us to keep us from being able to feel our gut and make decisions based on our gut, because those decisions that you make from your gut are the scariest ones, because everyone's going to tell you that you're crazy. Everyone's going to tell you that you're wrong, that you're being irresponsible, that you're stupid. And we have this world where it's like all of these distractions are thrown at us constantly to knock us off of our focus and the things that we truly love in just a couple seconds. Like, why have we not made more things that remind us of our magic and our beauty and help us understand our intuition and our gut? So I've done this whole thing where I'm like, okay, what's the scariest thing? And what's the most weird part of the big thing I like about travel is like, you meet people that are so different from you and cultures that are so different from what you grew up in, that it will change your life forever just going and having one of those experiences, let alone 10 or 20, but just one of them, right? The first time I went out of the country, I went to Thailand, and then I went to Cambodia. And this is before I quit my job. It was before I had a business. And I still believe to this point that that experience of being in Cambodia and being around those cultures actually were one of the major seeds for me to come back and make a transition and to not worry so fucking much about the rat race that we have created in the Western world. Life, when you get into these bad situations, like these rocky bottom moments, I really do believe that it's all reactionary. Like, life isn't about what happens to you. It's not about the beauty that happens to you. It's not about the bullshit that happens to you. Life is about how you choose to react when it happens. And so fundamentally, to answer the question, like the most effective thing that I've done besides leaning into mystery is understanding what I want in life. Like, what's my big vision? Who do I want to become? And what does that mean when I close my eyes and I picture it? Like, who is around me? right? Like who's around me? What makes me feel excited and inspires me? What am I doing on a day-to-day basis? How does my health look? How does my body look? How is my relationship with my head and my body? How am I spending my time throughout the day? Like, do I have, what is my partner like, or partners, or whatever you're into? What does my kid, look like? And what are we doing? And I create this vision, and every day I sit down and I meditate and I recite this giant mantra, walking myself through in the present tense of what this feels like. And it's like I describe the surroundings, I describe who I'm with. And this subconsciously trains your brain to believe this is actually happening. And therefore, you start to make decisions based on the alignment to become part of this vision. Now, it may sound a little bit woo, but that's where action comes into play. If you can remember that vision and you recite it every single day, and a good way to get there is by making a list of what you don't want. If you have no idea what you want, make a list of what you don't want and then create the vision as the opposite of that. Then you can say, okay, I'm going to wake up this morning. I'm going to let the sun hit my face. I'm going to do like some fascia work or whatever to get my energy moving. But now, what are the two most important things I can do today to take action to move towards this vision that I have? It doesn't have to be a home run. Like it's baby steps. It's legit baby steps. When I look at the last 5 years of my life, it feels like my entire life because I've done so much and I've experienced so many different things, and I've been to like 20 different countries, and I work for myself, and I'm like just scattering around like all this incredible, miraculous things that I once thought was an impossible dream for myself is now a reality. The way that came to life was by me sitting down every day from the beginning in 2014. One of the first things I learned was to sit down and write two things that you're going to do that day on a note card. And then on the other side of the note card, write out your vision of what you want to become. And what are these two things? And do those two things. Like no matter what you do, if you have to get up at 3 a.m. before you go to work, do it. If you have to do it when you get home from work, do it. But make sure you're taking an hour out of your day or whatever you can squeeze in, 10 minutes, 20 minutes to do at least one thing, but two things if you can, to move towards your vision. That could just be calling someone and telling them about your vision. It could be writing an email. It could be very small things, but ultimately those little things can then stack into a 100-day type vision scenario that you could also create, which would be like, vision boards and stuff like that. And then just keeping all of that stuff in alignment with each other. There is no way that you are ever going to sit stalemate if you're doing this, if you're taking action. You're always going to be doing better than you were, and therefore you're guaranteed to make progress. So, explore mysterious things that make you uncomfortable as super uncomfortable, and then also take the action to make your visions come to life.
Dude, that was such a beautiful answer, man. There's so much to unpack. Like somebody asked you a question, do you love it? And you're like, what? Like, am I supposed to love it? Most people don't know that like, hey, you can have a vision of what you want and you can have a vision of who you want to be. And to kind of write that out and formulate it the way and some of the tools that you said, man. And I actually do that in my teaching programs. Like the first step is to have a clear vision of what you want to have, what you want to do, and who you want to be. And then from there, man, to start to visualize, because the cool thing, man, is the brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So if you start to imagine stuff to the point where it feels real, you're just going to naturally embody that. So it's just like, and some of the action steps that you put in there, man, it's just so amazing. Like that is a, you have the intentionality of who you want to be and the action of, aligning with that. It just comes together, this perfect recipe. What excites you, Heath, about where you're at now and where you're headed the most, and just everything you've been able to accomplish and experience in life?
Wow. It's hard. Like I think back to the first thing I did to make money to get on this journey. And I sold a Lego blanket that I bought at like Target. I sold it on Amazon for like $10 more than I bought it for.
Wow.
And that was the most exciting day ever for me. And that was just like it was 2015, I think. So 6 years ago, 5.5 years ago, because it was late 2015. And like, but that was such a huge win for me that day. It was like, I just made actual money online doing something on my own. Right. And fast forward to going through all the shit that I went through. I mean, I got to the point where I was doing 6-figure months, and then I lost everything. And I thought I was going to have to file bankruptcy. I thought I was going to have to go back and work in construction company again. And I started talking to all these really miraculous people that again, just randomly showed up in my life because I was willing to connect, and were like, no, like you're on the brink of making a really big decision. Make sure you make the right decision here. And it's like, oh yeah, I got to keep going and getting uncomfortable and like risking it all, because if you don't, That comfort bubble is the most dangerous thing in the world. That job that you kind of like, that's the most dangerous job in the world, because you'll stay there your whole life because you can kind of tolerate it, and it will keep you from doing the things that you really love. Most of the people that make something had something that they just a position that they really hated, and it forced them, because they're like, oh, I hate this so much, I have to do something else. But so many people get stuck in that middle ground. What excites me nowadays is like, I know that I'm here to facilitate conversations and create things that help inspire people's minds to be more creative. And I get to wake up every day now, and I get to write, and I get to make affirmation decks and journaling systems, and share in whatever way that I can. I get to go to farms and learn from Mayan oracles, and do ceremonies in the most traditional indigenous ways, and sit in, drum circles with lots of people that have been through all different walks of life, and see that we're all just coming back to this idea that, like Ram Dass says, we're all just walking each other home. So what truly excites me is just, it's like, I can wake up and I can be future oriented by just being in the present. Like, I don't have to do anything else in my entire life, because I've already proven to myself that I had what it takes to do what I love, right? And to go for it. And like, if I died tomorrow, I've done enough contemplating my death that I'd be okay with it. And if you can get to the point where you're waking up every day and you're like, death's right here, right? Death isn't our enemy. It's really our best friend. It's the only constant reminder of how beautiful and sacred each moment of life is.
Wow, I
So
love
what are
that.
you going to do with that moment? What are you going to do? Right? Are you going to watch TV and get a bucket of like KFC and shove your hands down your pants and get all greasy and watch Jerry Springer and then complain about like some baby mama drama to your friends and how you can't, get a better job than what you have? Like, or are you gonna fucking throw the television away, go outside and look at the sunset, get some natural energy, remove the rubber sole between your foot and the ground, and absorb some of Earth's electromagnetic energy as well? Because that is, we can talk about that in a second if you want, but that's been one of the most fundamental, incredible things for my health transformation. Um, but I think it's just, if you can truly learn to love your moments and understand the respect and like the gift that we have to even be here, like the miracle that we're even here and we get to share these moments, then it's not so hard to be like, okay, I'm going to choose to do what I like in these moments. Of course, we all have to have our money hustle. We all have to be able to support ourselves. That's totally fine. But that comes with loving yourself. If you can love yourself fundamentally, then you're still going to love yourself if you have to clean out porta potties. You're still going to love yourself if you have to do the thing that you don't want to do the most. And that's been a lesson that I've had to learn over and over again in life, but it always brings me back to really just fundamental happiness.
Dude, I love that, man. That was some powerful stuff. So going off what you were just saying there toward the end, man, like a way of being able to love and connect with yourself more. And also, like you mentioned, connect with nature. What has been a big part of that, like self-love and happiness journey for you, and in terms of, nature oriented as well and connecting with the universe?
Yeah. Well, plant medicine is a rabbit hole that I think anyone who ends up in that realm is called. Make sure that you are called by the medicine and not because you listen to some podcast and some gringo white dude told you to go down to Amazon and do ayahuasca or something. In my position, like, I really followed my intuition all the way and ended up in certain places. Nature is everything. And this is honestly today, and I every day I'm thinking about how I truly believe sobriety is the most psychedelic experience of them all. You don't need anything to be able to go sit by a waterfall and really feel the power of what you are a part of. And I had a lot of health issues, and like, you're very health oriented, which is what excites me to connect as well. But dude, I couldn't drink carbonation my entire life. I couldn't burp. I was bloated after every meal, and I always thought it was normal. So, like, since I was a kid, I just thought it was normal that everyone went through it, that you just feel like you're dying after you eat. I
Wow.
ended up in Nicaragua in 2017, and I was doing this like 2-hour breathwork ceremony. It's like, the weirdest. It was something very strange that I was leaning into, like with 75 other people on this balcony overlooking the ocean, the Pacific Ocean, on a full moon. And I went into this, when you do powerful breath work, like, your body, like, you go into a trance essentially. I mean, that is an avenue without psychedelics to take you to a very psychedelic place. It's a very lucid place. And I went in there, man. It was like this entity thing, like, came to me, and released itself from me. And when that happened and I came out of this, I mean, of course, I was crying, and there were people around me that were screaming on the top of their lungs. There were people that were throwing up. There were people that were peeing themselves. Like a lot of the different reactions you get from that intense of a breathwork ceremony. But you're all just releasing trauma that's been stored in your body, right? And emotional blockages and trauma, which is why hitting the gym and doing Muay Thai and working with your body, that's another pure, clean, ancient aspect of releasing emotional trauma that gets stuck in your body. Breathwork is another avenue for that. And when I came out of that ceremony, I all I could remember was like, I am Earth. I'm part of Earth. I am Earth. Like, what happened? I am Earth. But I couldn't eat spicy food or anything my whole life. That night, I got this like, they had this crazy, insane buffet on the beach, and it was like all this spicy food because you're in Nicaragua. And I was like, for some reason, craving spicy. And I got a little bit of the spicy food, and I sat down, and all these people at the table started talking about how hot it was and they couldn't eat it. But I had just eaten it and I didn't feel any spice. And found out very quickly that whatever reversed itself in that breath work, and immediately I can now eat the hottest stuff in the world. I can
Wow.
handle it really well. I can drink carbonation and I can burp. And none of those things I could do before. So what we don't know is almost everything, right? And you don't know it until you experience it. But like, I would have never gotten to the point of making that health transformation had I not been willing to talk to some random girl on a call that it was Jules Schroeder. She runs the Unconventional Life. And then her be like, hey, I don't know, you're going to think this is going to be weird, but I know that you need to come to Nicaragua and be in this experience because something drastic is going to change for you when you do. And I'm like, oh, this lady's just trying to sell me something and make money. No, she wasn't. Like, she actually was dialed in, and her story is insane, by the way. She was pronounced dead for like multiple minutes, and like had this whole thing with this interaction in the middle world when she was dead, and came back and did all these remarkable things. But
Wow.
went on to be Inc. named her number one entrepreneur female changing the world, which was pretty cool. But she creates these experiences around the world to bring people to do unconventional things and get out of their comfort zone. And I went through those processes, and it taught me to do these kind of deep connectivity things with other humans and also nature. And along the way, just rediscovered how powerful it is to take your shoes off and sit outside. I mean, what I didn't know, and what is so obvious and what most of us don't know, is that we're electric beings, right? And like, we get electricity from the earth. Yet up until, the 60s or whatever, we really had that connection pretty hardcore. But then they invented the rubber soled shoe, and that completely cut off the connection from our body to the earth, mostly throughout our days. Of course, some of us take our sandals off and walk around barefoot, but most of us don't. And then we go inside and we have a concrete, although concrete's conductive, if there's a subgrade below it or a foundation, it's not. And we're in these boxes, or we're up on like platforms, and we're disconnected from the earth, and we're sleeping in beds that are disconnected from the earth. Well, free radicals, which basically, a big cause of free radicals is electromagnetic frequencies from internet, from all these electromagnetic stuff we've got going on in the world. Free radicals are what really attack and create a lot of the disease and the inflammation in your body. And the way to balance a free radical is by bringing in electrons from the earth's electromagnetic field. So they basically, you can stand outside for 10 minutes barefoot and absorb like ungodly amounts of electrons. Sorry if I'm getting this confused. Electrons that will then lend their charge to, they act as antioxidants. Essentially, antioxidants can lend a charge that doesn't damage the cell structure. They lend a charge to the free radicals, which then balance the free radicals and make them stop running around trying to steal a charge from other cells, which is what free radicals do. And in that process, you're eliminating inflammation. Well, your body regenerates itself when you're sleeping the most. So like, it's cool to go outside and to swim in the ocean. Like, there's a reason why if you go swim in the ocean or you go on a camping trip, you wake up, even if you drink 6 beers, like when you're camping, you wake up, you feel amazing because you've been connected to the earth all night. And people wonder like, why do I feel so good when I just swim in the ocean? It's because you're absorbing all of that healing energy. Well, when you sleep in your house, that is the most crucial time for your body to be getting these electrons to balance out your free radicals and to cure your inflammation. But our beds aren't connected to the earth. And so when I figured that out, I immediately got into earthing equipment, and like, I figured out how to ground my bed to the earth so that no matter what, if I am touching my bed, it is grounded to the earth, and therefore I'm absorbing electrons from the earth, even though I'm in my
Wow.
house. Anyone who's interested in more of this, go, I believe it's earthing.com. There's a free documentary that this dude who was a cable man started making, and it's all of the science, and we don't even need to go the scientific route, because it's like, well, yeah, we came from the earth. It makes sense that the earth would be healing for us. Like, when did we decide to disconnect ourselves so much? It's really crazy. Like, even the Oxford Dictionary of nature says all things outside of humans as opposed to humans, as if we're not part of nature, which is fucking insane. So ultimate health and immunity and strength, like, figure out ways that you can reconnect yourself to earth. Go outside and play more. Be it rechild yourself, right? Go swimming, go rip off your clothes and run Looney Tunes through the woods, and climb up a fucking tree in the middle of a rainstorm and swing down and yell cowabunga into the puddles of mud, the glorious elixirs of earth. You shouldn't be just coming home and staring at your phone and watching television until you get up to go make, money to get by again. You should really be out there exploring what this magical earth has to offer you. And that remotely, in the biggest part, it's healing, right? The earth has all the ability to heal you, and in that allows you to open up and expand your creativity, to get better ideas, to deconstruct these layers that are on you, to unlearn all of the things that have been taught to you as you grow up. And then therefore you can discover who you really are, what truly excites you, while feeling good. And so I urge anyone to, go watch that earthing documentary, and then, maybe even get an earthing mat or something. I mean, the ones on earthing.com are quite pricey. They're like $200 or so, because I look at it like, well, this is a investment for your entire future,
For
like, of
sure.
health. And it's one of the best things I've ever implemented into my arsenal of, like, biohacking your life. But it shouldn't even be considered biohacking, because it is you, right? It's just part of you.
Yeah.
So I urge anyone to check that stuff out and to spend more time outside.
Dude, that's incredible, man. That was some powerful stuff, dude. You've given so much insight, Heath, on, like, the what you can do physically, what you can do mentally, what you can do in terms of relationships, spiritual, like all these different avenues. What would be one more, like, core piece of life advice, man, that you've learned throughout your life to kind of stick with people toward the end of this podcast, that you've taken a value in your life to really hit home? What would that be?
Stop trying so hard to figure things out. Because it's like, I know I've said that multiple times, but it doesn't matter what I do and how much I create. It's like, don't stress so much about the outcome, but instead do it for the passion of creating. Like, paint because you want to paint, not because you think someone is going to buy your painting later. Write because you enjoy writing and you want to talk to yourself and learn about yourself, not because you want to convey a message to someone else. Wake up and, like, have your meal. Like, when you eat your meal, pay attention to that bite. Feel what it's like in your mouth. Like, where did this apple come from? Like, who grew this? What farm did it come on? What kind of energy and had to go through this process to get this to in my hands where I could eat it, because you didn't just pick it off of a tree, most likely. If you did, you're winning. But it's like, every single fundamental moment that you have, be aware of the objects that are in your hands, what you're using. Is this item contributing absolute value to my life? And is it something that is really supportive of who I want to become long term? Are these people around me people that are lifting me up and encouraging me and affirming all of my dreams for me and with me? Or are they making me feel bad or guilt tripping me or telling me that it's not realistic and that's not good enough? um, is your job, like, is it supporting you to be able to make the money that you need so that you can have the inspiration to build something on the side and then eventually get away from it? Or is it something that is just completely toxifying and sucking the life out of you and pulling all of your energy out to where you can't do anything? Like, because you have to understand these questions before you can start making decisions to move towards who you are and what you want to become. I removed from the people aspect. When I started making my transformation, I removed almost everybody from my life. Everyone, man. I'm talking my best friends. My best friend, who is still my best friend today, he went on this amazing journey himself, and he's just this remarkable guy now. But back when I started making my transition, he was still just way worse than I was back then, and was like, wanting to influence me the other way. You can't do that. That shit's stupid. Like, what's wrong with you? You know? And I legit told him, like, dude, I'm sorry. I'm not hanging out with you anymore. I can't do this.
Wow.
And by removing all of this negative energy that's sucking you away, you create space to bring in the good stuff that's going to allow you to become the person you want to become. So it goes back to that notion, like, understand what you're doing in your moments, pay attention to all of the beautiful stuff that you're interacting with. Make sure that you're telling people about how excited you are, and don't worry so much about what other people think, but do pay attention to what other people think in the aspect of, like, if this person isn't supportive, get rid of them. Like, you have to do it. You got to, like, make space between you and them, and then find the people who are and surround yourself with them. And that is invaluable advice that is always going to keep you moving in the right direction. Even if it's just find a local meetup group, or, like, even if you have to wear a mask, you know what I mean? Like, just, I have a whole problem with immune systems and like the way that the world has gone with this paradigm of covering our faces up and what it does to people. But, like, you have to still find ways to connect with people, Zoom chats, like, and to tell them what you're doing. And I think that if you do that, you know, you'll maybe discover that yellow brick road that you thought was going to lead you somewhere is actually a purple brick road. And that purple brick road has lots more surprises that you didn't even know existed as well. So.
Wow. Amazing, dude. I love that, man. That's such a good way to wrap up, dude. Where can people find you, man? This has been an incredible podcast. Where can people connect with you? Where can they, buy affirmations? Where can they connect with you and see all the services you offer and everything that you're about?
Yeah, actually, I'm very communicative directly. So if anyone has questions or wants to reach out, you can send me a direct DM on Instagram. I'm at Heath Fist Pumps. And I'm serious about that, because if it wasn't for people in my life that did the same thing for me, then I would never be where I'm at. HeathArmstrong.com is my hub. You can find pretty much anything there. I'm getting ready to put the new site up. By the time this is out, it'll probably be up, which is exciting.
Yes.
And then RageCreate.com I make sweet-ass affirmation decks that are just basically little reminders of your magic that you can hide around your house. They're funny, they're witty, they're raunchy at times. There's a lot of dry humor, but they're real. And the goal of them is to make you kind of laugh loudly and think deeply at the same time. And it was a project that I started making because when I was trying to explain to people that I was surrounded with in the construction industry about, like, things that they would consider woo-woo, I didn't understand the language of how to do it. And I figured out how to bridge that gap. So if you're the type of person that doesn't believe in universal synchronicity or woo stuff, it'll kind of help reason. Like, it's all like very real stuff in this deck that you'll probably like. And we have a new one coming out soon that's going to be on Kickstarter. But if you could just go to HeathArmstrong.com or RageCreate.com, it'll lead you where you need to go. And Never Stop Peaking is my podcast if you want to listen to me rant about random things.
Dude, that's amazing. And I can vouch for the Rage Create, man. Heath was nice enough to send me some, and they are awesome. So get those sweet ass affirmations, check out him, send him a direct message. Like he said, people have had, like, successful people, they want to share, man. And like he said, like, the people, he wouldn't be where he is today without the people in his life. So that advice is received. And I just appreciate who you are, man, and for you coming on the podcast. And I'm grateful to be connected. So thanks for making this time.
Yeah, dude, it feels good. There definitely is a synchronicity in our energies. So I appreciate it just as much as you, and looking forward to having this connection now.
Me too, dude. Well, guys, I'll link out Heath, all his stuff below. But thank you guys for listening to the episode. Powerful One Podcast. We are out.
Peace.
So thank you guys so much for making it to the end. I really appreciate your support, not only for me, not only for Powerful One, but also all the guests on this platform, and just tuning in and being inspired and being powerful, man. So, thank you again if you watch this, and, excited for the future. Excited. It's been a great year for Powerful One. Excited for everything I have coming in the future, everything with the brand, everything with my personal brand, and just everything in general. So just want to thank you guys again, and be sure to, share this if it inspired you, if it felt powerful, if you connected with it, share it with your friends, share the platform. Please go, if you don't mind, go subscribe on YouTube, go write a review on iTunes. All that stuff really means a lot. Thank you guys again, and be sure to stay tuned, because every week we are coming out with a new podcast episode. Stay locked into the page, guys. Thank you. Stay powerful.